So first of my apologies for that the frame is not full because I didn't have anyone to video for me. He just came out of his stall, so he's a bit stiff. You see, as soon as I pick up the reins and slow him down, his limp becomes a lot more pronounced. And that has to do with, of course, I'm asking him, and he then pushes his back away. And then he becomes, of course, a lot more loaded on the forehand. And that's why he's actually limping a little bit more there. But that's okay. So it's what I always hammer on is rhythm, right? So he has to have a forward rhythm. He has to be moving forward from the back to the front. And because he's a little bit tense and stiff there, he responds very heavily to your leg. And thus he wants to trot and get away. But of course he's not allowed to trot. So I intend to just keep him at a walk and be relaxed, but try to maintain a rhythm. Here you can see he slows down again, and he's still kind of bracing against it, and he's not swinging through with his back end. And what I'm doing now is I'm just touching him up front. I close my reins, I close my legs to see if he will move off, and just do like the check. Kind of when you get in a car, you check your rear view mirror, you check that the mirrors are right, you check everything, that the steering wheel is at the right height, that the seat's where you need it to be. It's kind of what I'm doing here, right? So I'm checking, is he forward of my hand? Does he take connection up front? Does he brace against it? Does he go off it? Does he, all that stuff, right? So does he try to escape? Does he trot, etc., etc.? So right now I'm having a little more connection there. You can slowly see his gait widening because he's dropping. And what I'm doing is I've got my inside leg, I'm pushing him to my outside hand, making the curve of the circle I'm riding, and there he really starts to drop. My outside rein is the connection, and I guide him down from that outside rein. The inside rein kind of like does the sponge action. So I squeeze and let go. Squeeze and let go, and ask flexion. Sorry about that. Ask flexion, and then as soon as he provides that flexion, and flexion is just the slight tilt of the head to the left or to the inside or whatever side you want him to be, and you're asking. So you can see the eye and the part of the nostril, nothing more. We never bring them fully out of balance because then their spine is not aligned and they cannot relax. But as you can see here, it's really starting to drop and really starts to go more into his withers and his top line instead of just bending his neck at the third vertebra. But he's actually using his entire top line here. And he's dropping a little bit, and you can see him being a little bit on the forehand. But this is also very novel to him, so I'm not too worried about it. And you see his gait is slowly becoming a bit bigger, and there he's really starting to actually loosen up more in his body. And again, he's pretty stiff because, of course, of his injury. He's been compensating a lot, so his back is really stiff, and his ligaments and his muscles are not used to this type of work. But that's okay. I slowly start bending him loose and trying to get him to let go and really start moving through his body. So right there, I would put my left leg a little bit back, my right leg on the girth, my left hand connected, and my right hand is asking like, hey, close, let go, close, let go. I've got my hands pretty low and at my knees, but that's because he's starting to get more into that location, into that position, and I'm relaxing there. The trot there was just because he is not wanting to go over his back, because of course that's a lot more work, and he starts trotting there just to catch himself. And also just to get away from the work, right? So horses usually have 3 responses: freeze, fight, or flight. So when they have to do something they don't like, they either fight, like Serenity would do, they freeze, kind of like Hope does, or they flee, and he tends to just start running in order to get away from that. Because it's easier when I start trotting, it all goes away, and that's of course not the case. So we just bring him back slowly to walk, and then we resume everything. And as soon as he drops, as soon as he does what he needs to do, you become a passenger. You just stay there, you stay still, and you don't do anything. Right now, I'm starting to do the step over of the hind leg. And you see me bringing my right side back, pushing with my right leg. I'm closing my left shoulder, my left side. And he does that actually pretty nicely. He's still a bit too flexed to the right, but that's okay. Again, he's never done this before as far as I know. So I'm slowly just introducing him to that. And then I change him to the other side. And then, of course, we start on the other side doing the same thing. But he's slowly moving a lot more through his body. He's using his back more. He's actually becoming more. There you go. Good boy. There he goes all the way down. And he's slowly starting to loosen up his back. He's starting to loosen up his limbs and actually moving a little bit more through his body. And you can see the undulation of his back. You can see the hips actually drop a little bit more from side to side when he's walking. So that's really good. That's really what we want to see. And that's our goal here, to just get him nice and relaxed and actually have some functional movement. And now you see me putting my right side a little bit back, closing on the outside rein. So my right hand closes, my left side goes back, and then he's starting to step over. See how nicely he crosses up front and at the back? That is perfect. He's chewing a little bit, which is good. But he's also, I have to be a little bit more in his mouth there, right? Because he doesn't understand necessarily what I want from him yet. So you just have to be as hard as you need to be and as soft as you can. And as soon as he does what you ask him, you completely relax. So here I drop him again and try to get him as round in his body as possible, not necessarily in the neck. When people ask roundness, I want his body to be round, become a ball, but his neck I really don't care about. As long as his back is up, his neck will automatically fall into place. And that's kind of what I'm focused on. That's all I'm focused on at the moment. See what I'm doing here, just changing direction, right leg back, slightly bend to the inside, to the left, there you go, there he drops a little more. At this point, you can see his head bobbing a little bit, right? He's pretty loose up front. He's actually letting me manipulate him a little bit more. And there he goes nicely into his withers. And then he falls a little bit too low, and then he starts trotting again to actually catch himself. So it's a very precarious balance that you're trying to maintain, of not too much, not too little. You have to be right there, that height, not too low. He could drop a little bit more, I would say, with his length of his neck, but he's also not strong enough at this point to do that. So I would suggest him not. So there I'm trying to do some leg yields on the wall, and he is, there he goes. This is good. So again, I put my right side back, and then I close on my left hand every time he makes a step, really. So to just stop that front end from moving and to put him more lateral and to ask him to do that. I don't put him perpendicular to the wall yet. See, he's not there just yet, so I keep the angle close, sharper, so smaller to the wall, to just give him a little bit more room to move. But in the end, I would want him perpendicular, to just really have him step under with his back right, or his back legs, to really put that weight on the back, on that one leg, while that is stepping under his mass. And then we do a little change, and he's starting to really round up, and you can actually see his undulation in his body more. And he's curling up there a little bit, which again, when a horse is very, very low in frame, I don't mind that they get back behind the vertical, it's really not that big of a deal, because those ligaments need to be tightened in order to lift the back. And here I'm doing the other thing. So you see my left side going back, and I'm asking him with my leg, as soon as the so the left hind is from the ground, I tap a little bit to engage the left hind. And he did that really well. He picked that up really easily. And then we reward and walk out of the exercise when he's done a good job. Again, this is relatively new for him, so I'm not asking too much. I'm just introducing it here. I believe this is the second time I rode him. And he does a admirable job at that. So I'm really pleased with that. And there I was trying to bend him in a little bit. And of course, bending is stretching, and he didn't like that very much. And of course, you have the issue with this front leg. So he started to trot there a little bit, but that's okay. Again, we don't punish. We don't negatively influence him there. We just calmly ride him back, exhaling with our bodies and just making your body a little heavier. And then doing that. So right here, I'm asking him to do a turn around the hindquarters. And he did that actually quite nicely. He still remained active with his back legs. And he was crossing over with his fronts quite nicely. And there you saw him trotting away a little bit. Again, I'm sorry for that I'm out of frame half the time. I'll try to make another clip as soon as I get the bridle again. And here does he do the other side. So here he still picks up. You found that really difficult. That's why the little shake, that's kind of stress. And I put a little bit more stress on his left front, which I believe is the perpetrator. So that is, of course, he didn't like that very much. But by keeping him moving and keeping it active, we are lubricating that joint. And that's also the reason why we're now 12 minutes in before he asked this. So he's been moving, he's been warming up, the joint fluid has been going through his body, and that's exactly what you need to do. Really warm him up and really get the juices flowing before asking certain things. So here, right now, you can see that he is a little bit more forward. Right there, there was a little bit of a stop in there and then the movement. And that's probably because either he was trotting or he actually stumbled a little bit, but that's okay. Again, it's not, with his condition, that's to be expected, right? We're expecting that. So it's not something that is abnormal or is out of character. This is something we expect him to do. And that's why, again, I'm not reacting overly, or I'm just having him move and move through the exercises as fluidly as he can. You see him, he's slowly moving a little bit bigger, and there, of course, he stagnates a little bit, but that part was actually really nice. He's really starting to lengthen his frame more, and I'm getting through that. There I was doing a little leg yield. Again, you see his neck coming a little bit too far to the right, so he's got a little bit too much flexion, but he started to step over decently. Again, I don't know what his background is necessarily, so we're just introducing the leg yield a little bit. It's the same thing as the on the wall and stepping over. So I put my right side back here. You can see it, and there he goes. He starts to scissor over with his legs, and I make sponge motions with my left hand in order to stop him from bending over and to have him move more lateral. And again, 2-3 steps. He did a good job, so I stop. I'm not asking him the entire length of the side of the arena yet, because he's just not strong enough and not limber enough to maintain that. And if you were to keep asking, he would just, first of all, you're making the entire exercise difficult for him, and it gives it a negative connotation, so they don't want to do it anymore. So there you go. That's a good boy. There he goes. See him stepping over. And again, it's not major yet, right? But there has to be a start somewhere. So he did that really nicely. There was no tension in his body. He maintained his rhythm, and he maintained his connection up front. So I'm actually really pleased with that. So yeah, that was really good. And I'm doing the same thing. I'm putting my left side back, and there he goes again. And he steps a few steps, and there he stagnates a little. And there we write him out and reward. So that's a good boy. Eventually, one step turns into 2 steps, 2 steps turns into 3, 3 turn into 10, 10 turn into the entire arena, or as much as you want. So he just has to get stronger. He gets to get familiar with the exercise and how he has to position his body while still being relaxed. And that's very important to note for him. It's all within relaxation, and it's all within a good headspace for them to learn in. Asking him back, you see him asking my hands a little higher. That's just to put his weight back. I rotate my pelvis, so I hollow my back a little to indicate like, hey, I'm going to ask you to go backwards. And then we come to the end of the clip.